and welcome to From the Be-All End. I'm Simon Evans, and with me is Darren Bentley, Justin Conley and Paul Woodhouse, and we're looking back on the midweek draw with West Bromwich Albion and ahead to the trip to Swansea City. Gentlemen, a bit of a disappointing result, but the way things went elsewhere, one we perhaps slightly got away with, or the other way of looking at it is a missed opportunity. Daz, what did you make of that one?
Yeah, it felt like a missed opportunity walking off the turf until we saw that late Bristol City equaliser. But I still think it's an opportunity missed when all's said and done. I think we never really, after a great first half, I thought, we started slow. I thought we played really well in the sort of second half of the first half. But then after the break, we just never came out. And I don't know what it is about this team at the minute. It's so hard to put a full 90 minutes in. Consistent 90 minutes, I should add. And in that second half, it just felt like it was going to peter out into a draw, and lo and behold, it did. I think we're slightly lucky not to lose it. I thought they were pretty good going forward. They certainly came and had a go at us, which makes a pleasant change. But yeah, due to the Sheffield United result, it's just another game ticked off. And for me, it is an opportunity missed. I mean, we may well get that back at the weekend. You know, if we can get a good result at Swansea, then the Sheffield derby's no tap in, is it? For Chris Wilder as well, so who knows? But it's another game gone and an opportunity missed for me.
Yeah, Justin. I mean, it was back to those kind of frustrating performances in a lot of ways, wasn't it?
Do you know? I thought it was awful. I think everybody involved ought to be thoroughly ashamed of themselves. Really, I mean, the players, the staff, especially the referee. I thought it was one of the worst refereeing performances I've ever seen.
We've seen a few.
And we've seen quite a few. I was going to describe it as a comedy of errors, but I think it was more a tragedy of errors. I mean, there was so much about it to dislike from my point of view. I think Dazzy's right. You know, the first half wasn't that bad, but you know, their goal was never a free kick, was it? And it was taken several miles away from the place where the foul didn't happen. You know, our goal came about because their keeper literally dropped the ball. I mean, the second half had literally no shots on target, and I think that just sums up the performance. I mean, and you know things are going south when a player like Josh Cullen is repeatedly giving the ball away. He doesn't do that very often. And then there was that crowning glory at the end. I don't think I have ever seen a game that suddenly exploded into life after it's finished. It was incredible. What a shit show that was at the end. And again, a massive missed opportunity. And I have to say, we didn't look like a side who was playing to go top of the table, did we? I think, like you say, it was one of those, that second half performance was just more of that sort of aimless knocking it about without really producing anything. And we were crying out for urgency, and instead we were struggling to keep our eyes open. At least I was. At least the fight at the end sort of woke me up a bit.
It feels like that's the third or fourth time when we've been second and had a chance to go top where we've kind of all fluffed our lines. You know, it seemed like we're a bit top averse. We just ran out of ideas that second half, or just didn't have any ideas that second half. And like everybody said, lack of urgency, you know, and I couldn't quite work out what we were trying to do that second half. And it was, I thought, especially after the first half, because I thought we played some excellent stuff in parts without very much to show for it. You know, the second half really was nothing to write home about at all, was it?
Is there something about the way that we play that makes it feel like we're not playing with urgency, Daz? You know what I mean? We stick to the plan, don't we? Somehow, as fans, we want to see in those last 10 minutes when you're chasing to get the extra points, we want to see like this mass pressure and long balls going in and people looking like they really, really want those 3 points. But is it just the way we play, our style, that stops that? Or do you think there is a problem with like not being able to chase games like that?
I think that's indoctrinated in us, isn't it? I watched Leeds against Millwall, and it was a complete opposite. Leeds get the ball on the floor, but back to front quickly. Get it wide, get in amongst them, snap into tackles. We like to sort of speed it up, then slow it right down again. There's no tempo to our game. It's just slow, quick, slow. And I think we had at one stage, we had a corner in the second half, and it ended up 3 passes later, we're back with Trafford. It's symptomatic of, if there is no clear route to goal, we just stop and we switch sides and we go backwards, and we're forever going across the lines. And it just allows sides to reset quite quickly behind us, and that's the problem. I thought actually Jadon Anthony played really well in the first half, but I think they shackled Marcus Edwards really well, and that really restricted us. I think everything then had to go down the other side. I thought him and Perez played particularly well actually in the first half down the left, Anthony and Perez. But again, once he got to grips with that a little bit, that died out, and we were resigned to Koleosho coming out at the end, weren't we? Which is where we are at the minute, isn't it? You know, it was a last throw of the dice. So yeah, there is a problem with our tempo, I think, in games, and I think it's something the manager clearly preaches, and we're not going to change overnight. We've been like that all season. We ain't going to change for the last 9 games. But the irony was, it was supposed to be foot to the floor going to Parker, and we hadn't really turned the engine on, did we?
No, he was asked in the press conference whether having that cushion below us and not really being at risk of falling out of the top 6 means that the team can take more risk going to 3 points rather than a 1. And he said, well, we do that anyway. We're always going for the maximum points. We never go out there playing for a draw. And obviously they're not playing for a draw, but it does feel a bit that way to me, Justin, that we can't sort of switch things up in the same way that, you know, we've seen teams in the past at Burnley play a certain way, and then when they've either got to shut the door or really go for a goal, be able to change the tempo, but change the approach. It just seems like we're sort of stuck in that middle gear to me.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be a plan B, does there? It's like, this is not working. And the only change that they make is probably a bit later than they should do. A switch in personnel, you know, it's usually a different wide player, isn't it, to see if that makes a change. But you're right. I mean, I remember earlier on in the season, we were sort of praising Parker for about this idea that he was able to play a certain way to you know, get a result in a certain game and then change again for the next game. And he seemed to be doing that a little bit, but more recently, it just seems to have become a little bit like we've hit upon this formula that I think he thinks it's working, but it's not very exciting to watch. It's just like a patient build-up and trying to drag the opposition out of place. And if that kind of doesn't work, if we don't score that goal, there's nothing else to make it happen. I was interested to hear Josh Brownhill last week talking about how, like, promotion is literally the only thing that matters, and playing entertaining football is neither here nor there to them. That's the goal. It doesn't matter how it happens, as long as it happens. And it's a little bit disappointing to hear him talk like that, because you've got, you know, upwards of 20,000 people paying good money, spending a lot of time and effort getting to the games and all that sort of stuff. And he comes out, the club captain comes out and says, well, we're not really that bothered about entertaining you. And I think to myself, well, why should we bother going then, if that's what it's all about? You know, especially when the goal is to get promoted into a division that we're clearly going to struggle in next season. It's not going to be a walk in the park, is it? You know, it's not like we're approaching this utopia where suddenly everything's going to become more exciting. It's just going to be, in some ways, next season is going to be a bigger grind even than this season's been. It just seems so depressing and so sort of. You know what I mean? It's like,
come on. I think that's depressing. Wait till we get promoted.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point. We're playing this football. We're grinding out these results to get promoted into a division where we're going to lose 4 out of every 5 games. And I'm thinking, well, great, bring it on. Something to look forward to.
Cheer us up, Woody. Come on.
I think he's being very optimistic by saying we're going to lose 4 out of every 5 in Premier League. I mean, it's like, yeah, I agree. We're not playing to draw, but we aren't risking to win either, are we? There's a little bit more that you can do and you can give, and it's, I don't know. I've got a funny feeling that Park would be great with great players. I don't know if you had a few Marcus Edwards floating around who could find the perfect final ball and play the perfect pass and could like drop a shoulder, then it'd be fantastic the way that we played. Like Daz was saying, once you've shackled him a little bit, we start to look a little bit blunted again, don't we? We can run out of ideas very quickly. That doesn't really answer your question, does it, Simon?
No, let's talk about CJ Egan-Riley, because that situation at the end, he got the red card. It seemed, you know, just madness what was going on at the end, didn't it? But the appeal was on the basis, from what Scott Parker was saying, the appeal was on the basis that he thought he didn't know the whistle had gone, So he thought the player was running goalwards, and it's therefore a tactical foul, not a violent foul. I might be being naive, but I thought he was sent off because the game had finished and he tripped the bloke up as he was walking away. But that's...
I'm not sure a trip like that is a 3-match ban, which he could have well have been. And there was an instance in the game where Josh Cullen tripped somebody up and didn't get a booking, and it was almost an identical incident to CJ Riley's. So I can see why it's been overturned. I mean, we could talk about the ref till 10 o'clock tonight, but it's only 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But he was just atrocious. He never once had control of that game. He was letting stuff go that he shouldn't let go. He was giving decisions on a whim. He wasn't aided by a linesman in the shadow of the Bob Lawrence stand. He was tossing a coin for most throw-ins. It was just an appalling decision after the whistle, I think. But probably based on I think I saw him hit him, or I think I saw him kick him, and therefore, we better give him a red then. That was in line with what the officiating was like that night, I think. But yeah, right decision made. I mean, that would have been a travesty, and it would have been a disaster if we lost CJ Egan Riley for 3 matches, especially with Egdal going out and Egan being let out the door. We're then down to Worrell basically for 3 games, aren't we? And I'm not 100% sold on Worrell at the back. So, yeah, all in all, that's been a good day for Burnley, I think, getting Egan Riley back. And now we've got this one game. We can get this one game out of the way, hopefully put a performance in away from home, and then we've got the international break to just sort of reset.
Yeah, I mean, it's vital to have CJ Egan Riley there, isn't it? I mean, it's incredible to be saying that based on what we thought about him before the start of this season, but it would have been a big loss. Parker also getting a red card, Justin. He says that the misunderstanding was that you're not allowed to talk to the ref at all on the field at the end of the game, and says that he wasn't involved in any sort of abuse or anything, but he broke that protocol and therefore he got the red card for that.
It seemed to me that the referee repeatedly was telling him to go away and stop talking to him, and for some reason he kind of kept going back to him to have another word. You know, lip reading is a dangerous game, but he seemed to be saying, you know, I told you to go away. You know, he seems to be sort of saying that to him. So just a little bit silly to be getting involved in that, isn't it? I mean, I don't know that Scott Parker at that moment knew the full story about CJ Egan Riley saying that he hadn't heard the whistle and he didn't think. I don't know why that even matters, whether the whistle's blown or not. You know, he went and kicked the guy, didn't he? And the referee, who was stood very, very close and could see what was going on, thought it was a violent conduct thing, didn't he? Kicking out at someone like that, when actually what it was just a sort of little trip, wasn't it? But yeah, I mean, does it really matter if Scott Parker gets sent off and gets banned? Does that have an impact? I mean, him not standing on the touchline and shouting at people, does that really impact enormously on his ability to sort of do his job? You know, you see these managers who have been sent off sat in the stadium with the earpieces in, talking to whoever's on the touchline anyway. So I'm not sure it matters that much. I mean, I suppose if he's arguing that CJ ought not to have been sent off, the fact that the authorities agree with him might mean that his red card is rescinded as well. It should do, really, shouldn't it?
We've had to sit and watch some dull stuff in the stands this season. It's only right that the manager who gave us that to sit in stands as well and watch it.
Yeah. I mean, it does mean Michael Jackson has to sort of, you know, clean the earwax out of his AirPods, doesn't it? And he's got to he has to do a presser, I think, as well, doesn't he, Darren? If you've been red carded, you can't do the presser. Yeah, you can't do the
post match if you've been sent off, can you? So Jackson had to step in. Yeah. I think he's all right to do it. Yeah, I don't know if they can do it on Saturday. No, I don't think he can, you know.
I don't think he can on stand to do the presser.
Yeah, I think you're right.
He said he didn't think it would come into force for this weekend, so
right.
Maybe he's going to be okay. I don't know if they're appealing it or not. Has anybody seen that?
Managers always tend to take longer than players, don't they, to sort these things out?
Yeah, he said they were just focused on the CJ Egan Riley case. He didn't go into whether they were going to appeal this or not. But it's a funny one, like the manager in the stands situation, because it used to be, some managers used to do it, didn't they? Go back to the 70s and you'd see quite a lot of managers sat in their sheepskin coats in the director's box watching games. And
have you?
Yeah, and I remember speaking to a coach who said, like, you can see the whole field, you can see, if you're sat in that director's box at Bob Lord, you can see everything that's going on in front of you. If you're sat in the press box on the other side, you can see even more tactically what's going on. Probably the worst view for getting a tactical impression of a game is looking at people's shins from where you sat in the dugout. But I think, if I were given the job of like trying to understand tactically what's going on in a football match, I wouldn't want to sat in the dugout, would it?
No. Technology's moved along sufficiently, hasn't it, that, you can watch your little iPads at the same time, propped up on your tripods. But yeah, it's not, I'm assuming it's not the ideal place to be watching stuff going on. And it does seem a little bit of a throwback, all that, of an idea. It is surprising that there aren't people like further up at the back of the stands taking a slightly different view of the game.
Where I sit at the top of at the back of the north stand, right in front of the press box, there's always 3 or 4 video analysts from the opposition relaying information back down to the bench via their iPods and their iPads. But yeah, it's not like the old days when they used to have to get a boy to run a bit of paper down to the touchline, is it?
No, I always feel for them on the turf because the lads in the tracksuit with the laptops have been tracking the game and taking all these notes. They sprint down, don't they, to try and get into the dressing room to pass on this information to the manager at half time, or at least pass the laptop to somebody else and so on. Them steps on turf coming down from that press box on a cold day, like an icy day. Sometimes you have to watch your feet a little bit.
Your legs are frozen.
It's a fair old trek, that as well. You get 10,000 steps in there, by the way.
Yeah. But it's no. I mean, I've come across a few of those lads, and they used to come in the press box at Burnley at one time after Darren had was no longer in control of the press box, I should point out. But sometimes you'd be sat next to them quite often, and they're an interesting bunch of people. There's some of them are like, quite studious sort of characters who are obviously really, really nerdy about it all. And then there's some others. I remember one from Manchester City. Their egos have just exploded. They're basically Pep's assistant. The guy's 22. He's just graduated in some sports science degree from Manchester Uni, and he's like sat there and he's calling every player by his nickname. He's just like, yeah. It is quite amusing to see. And at Manchester United, they got that many of them because they never sacked until Jim will fix it came along. They still had like David Moyes' analysts sat there, and then next to them they'd have Louis van Gaal's analysts, because these people never got moved out. So you had these benches with varying technologies, apart from Ralph Ragnick, who had his guy in Moscow watching the games.
Wow,
who he used to ring through to. Let's get back to that West Brom game though, just before we wrap that up. Individually wise, again, we saw that we're still not sure who our centre forward is, are we? That's Fleming or Foster, and
we're not. And I made a case the other week for Hannibal's probably a better centre forward than Foster, and I'm kind of going to revisit that a little bit now because Hannibal drops in and out of games. He just drops in and out of games, doesn't he? Fleming. Foster had that great game, scored his goal. You think, right, he's off on now. Then he drops him back to the bench. But I was just got my words mixed up there. I was going to go on about the bigger problem for me is Hannibal. We have a Hannibal-shaped problem in that team, and that's trying to get him into a position where he benefits the team. I don't see him as a number 10. He doesn't score goals. He assists very, very rarely. So I don't see how we can play him as a 10. He had a little spell on the left where he played quite well, but we ain't moving Anthony off the left, and we ain't moving Roberts off the right. So I think we have a Hannibal-shaped problem in there now. I do like Josh Laurent and Collins holding 2, and I like Brownhill in there as a 10, I think, because Brownhill's got a goal in him, as we've seen in recent weeks. And when we pulled Hannibal back in the side on Tuesday, I was a bit worried that we'd lack the creativity again, and so it proved that ultimately. And it was no surprise in the end seeing Hooks, and he put Laurent on and then moved Brownhill forward again. Yeah, the centre forward, those two positions, 10 and 9, have been a problem for us all season, and we've never really got to grips with it, have we?
No, you're a big Hannibal fan, but I tend to have some sympathy with what Daz is saying there. It feels like we're trying to squeeze him into this system that doesn't seem to work for him. But what do you make of it?
Well, I'm a big fan of his because of the tempo issue. The fact that he's the one that moves the ball around most quickly and himself around more quickly. He never stops moving in a side that's that's seriously lacking, that intensity. He's the one that brings that. But he's not perfect for that position, is he? The strange thing is, I don't think he's ever played in one of those holding roles to see how see how he affects things there. We tried him out on the left-hand side, and that was a reasonable success. I think,
I think
we
so.
went on a decent run there. What's really weird to me is he's quite prepared to play a lot of players out of position. So he's quite happy to have Foster playing down the left, but we haven't seen Fleming playing that 10 role that he was playing in. When he had that success at Millwall, he hasn't even done 20 minutes in that role to see how it works, So he seems very reluctant to try that. I would love to see him playing behind Foster in that number 10 role with Hannibal and Cullen behind him and see. I think that would be much more dynamic. I think Fleming's quite good at holding the ball up, and if he does it in that deeper position, it gives the wider players a little bit more time to get up there with him. And
but then you're leaving our top scorer out then.
Well, that's it, That's another dilemma, isn't it? Because Brownhill can disappear for 90 minutes in games in which he doesn't score. I wouldn't say he was a player that runs games, and if he doesn't score, he quite often doesn't affect it. Although they showed a touch map for him on the game against West Brom, and he was literally all over the pitch touching it. I think, but I don't know. He doesn't seem to take games by the scruff of the neck, does he, Brownhill? He doesn't sort of run the midfield. He doesn't sort of in the way that Cullen can. But yeah, we've got like a good midfield scattered over about 6 players who've each got sort of one or two factors that are important, but none of them are complete. So it's a bit of a mix and match trying to find that formula. And I don't think we've hit on it yet, but I don't think we've tried everything yet either. So we are running out of games, aren't we?
Yeah, give it a week.
Yeah, I think his best performance is Hannibal when it was with those games he played on the left. I think that was a bit of a surprise, but it made us less predictable in some ways. It sort of seemed like we'd sort of broken things up a little bit, that sort of quite rigid structure that we had. But yeah, since Edwards comes in, you're going to play Edwards and Anthony out wide, aren't you? There's no question about that, really. Where would you squeeze him in, or would you not squeeze him in?
I think everybody's kind of half hit the nail on the head. He's better at driving from midfield, isn't he? And arguably that position out on the left, that period we had him out on the left, he played infinitely better than he has done anywhere else, arguably. You'd like to fit him in, but like everybody said, it's a bit of a conundrum. Do you leave out your top scorer? You don't obviously leave Cullen out. He slightly confuses Parker about what is a number 10 and who should be playing up top and all that kind of business. So it's not really going to change. He's going to try and squeeze square pegs into round holes right up until, we lose the playoff final, I would have thought.
Maybe Dazzy's misspoken, so is the answer, yeah? Make him a number 9. Yeah.
They should let us play 12 players and then we can get them all in.
Yeah. I mean, what we can say is third in the league and we're not doing badly. It's doing all right mixing and matching, but it does feel like we just roll the dice a little bit every week, don't we?
Mm. We're rolling the dice this weekend against Swansea City. Daz, what are you expecting from that one?
I'm hoping another solid performance, and if against a side who will be nowhere near, I don't think, the standard of West Brom, but probably will be better than Luton, because that'd be hard if they weren't. I expect us to go there and win that game. I expect us to go into international break with our foot to the floor and win that game and keep the pressure on the top 2. I think I said last week or the week before, I don't see the top 2 slipping up too much. But I think Sheffield Wednesday v Sheffield United is an interesting one this weekend at Hillsborough. That could go anywhere, that couldn't it? And it wouldn't surprise you if Sheffield Wednesday won that game. So that represents a real opportunity for me to sort of get ourselves back into the top 2. And then once you're in the top 2, then it's really game on, isn't it? At the minute, we're just playing catch-up a little bit. I still think Leeds will run away with it. I looked at their running the other day, and I think they have a reasonably easy running, if you could call the Championship easy. They've certainly got the easiest of the 3, I think. So I do think it comes down to Sheffield United or Burnley, and that's why Saturday's so important. And I think we have to win that game, I think, just to go into the national break. If you go to the national break in the top 2, you've got 2 weeks to sort of settle on that. And Sheffield United have 2 weeks to mull over dropping out the top 2. That's that adds a nice dynamic to when you kick off again, doesn't it?
I mean, it's got to that stage of the season, Justin, hasn't it, where every week we're looking at those other teams' results and where it puts us in the position. I mean, that makes things a little bit more interesting, even if some of the games aren't that thrilling. But do you think this is a weekend where we can maybe sneak in there?
Well, I think the important thing is we match those other teams, because at the moment promotion is still in our own hands, isn't it? We've got to play Sheffield United, and we're 2 points behind them. So if we win all our games for the rest of the season, they can't catch us. And I think it's important to maintain that sort of pressure on them and keep that up. There are a few games between now and then. I think we play them, what is it, the fourth last game of the season or something like that. So if we can remain in touch with them or get ahead of them before then that puts them under an enormous amount of pressure. So yeah, I mean, we just got to keep going, haven't we? We just got to keep reeling these points in and hope that they slip up. I don't think the title's beyond either us or Sheffield United. I don't know whether. I mean, it's definitely all still to play for, and I think the idea that, you know, we've more or less sealed a place in the playoffs. Something incredible would have to happen for us to finish, you know, outside that group. So let's just go for it. Let's just go for that second or first spot, because we've got nothing to lose, really, have we? We're going to get in the playoffs, whatever happens. So just roll that dice and
home advantage as well. We're pretty much sealed home advantage in the playoffs, Justin.
Yeah. Well, turn that dial up to 10, you know. And let's see where it takes us. You know,
what are you laughing? Finishes off because you're laughing because we all think just go for it. We only, we need to win these games, not draw, but everything. And then we sit down to watch these games, and it's a different story, isn't it? But
this rallying crowd, it's shit or bust. No, it's not. It really isn't. We know what's going to happen. You know, if we do get to second, we'll vaguely limp our way there. Don't get me wrong. I think we most probably will. I think it'll be relatively entertaining. We'll be talking similar to this, you know, probably every week until we quite handsomely smash Sheffield United. Wind up being second. They have a case of the collie wobbles, and we just about squeak it. And that's what it seems like it'll wind up being, you know. And that'll be that. We won't storm to second place, I don't think. We'll, you know, vaguely limp there and stand there for a while and pass it backwards and drop off to fourth and come back up to third, and, you know, that'll be about it.
To be fair, like, if we do end up in the playoffs, we are set up to do well in that format, aren't we? You know, certainly over 2 legs, but in a final as well, where we don't concede that many goals, but you've got to get a result out of it. We are kind of sort of geared up for that sort of scenario. So I wouldn't be too disappointed if we did end up in the playoffs, because I think we'd make it through. But it'd be nice not to have them nerves, wouldn't it, about it all?
Yeah, let's see how it all ends. It's into the interesting part of the season now. It's crunch time, and the Clarets at Swansea. We'll be back with you on Monday, looking back on that game and looking ahead to the games to come. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Have a great weekend, and up the Clarets.
How many times do I have to tell you? Stop moaning!
Not going anywhere. I've never been happier. Only to wake up in a whole different world.